So the BYU volleyball match, I should say. So for those of you who don't know, I believe there's over 5,000 people, which is stunning to me, credit to BYU, who come to watch a BYU versus Duke women's volleyball game. And a Duke player, a black woman on the team, says that there was somebody yelling racial slurs at her. Her godmother publishes this on social media. It takes off like wildfire. BYU kind of caught flat-footed, doesn't really know what to say. They've kicked somebody out, but they don't say that they kicked them out for using racial slurs. And this story is everywhere. You cannot escape it. And then what ends up happening is slowly much of this story begins to unravel, as many of these stories do. People go back and they watch the entire volleyball match, listen to the audio. They say, hey, if you heard anybody using racial slurs, share the videos that you took, share the audio that you have, share evidence that this actually occurred. Now, this is long after everybody in the media, particularly the sports media, has accepted this as truth. And now it's been several days since, and the BYU police have conducted an investigation. They can't find any evidence of any racial slurs. The BYU student newspaper has conducted an investigation. They can't find any evidence. And it emerges now that one of the godmother has got a sort of history of saying all sorts of racially charged things on social media. And all of this is kind of spiraling together to the point now where the acceptance that BYU had racist fans who were taunting a Duke black volleyball player has been totally accepted by the media. And there isn't a shred of actual corroborating evidence that this ever occurred. And in fact, there's no footage, there's no audio. And what I would say to you about this in general is, if there were over 5,000 fans present at a BYU volleyball game, and someone in the crowd was screaming racial slurs loud enough to be heard on the volleyball court by at least one player, wouldn't there be video of this? Everyone in there has a phone pretty much in their hands. The surest way to go viral with one of your videos is by finding someone, if we've learned anything, behaving inappropriately and immediately putting it up on social media. So my question out here is, why does this keep happening? Why is there such a demand to believe these stories that we don't require any investigations at all? And more often than not, these stories collapse when you actually ask questions. Remember, people got mad at me for the LeBron James racist graffiti on his gate story in Brentwood, California, a wealthy neighborhood in L.A. L.A. police investigated whether there were racial slurs on LeBron James's gate and determined that no crime had occurred. There was no crime, no prosecution, no evidence that anything had happened. That story just completely disappeared. What about Michael Sam? Remember when Michael Sam claimed that he had been racially profiled in a Las Vegas casino, and then all the video came out and you could see him behaving in a suspicious way when there were rumors that a shooting had occurred, and that story just vanishes. Certainly, outside the world of sports, Jussie Smollett is most famous for this because of the allegations that he made. And all I would say is the media's obligation, and I'm a part of the media, is to get things right. And so far, it appears that the media treated this story as truth, completely maligned BYU, and now it seems, at least based on all of the evidence being analyzed, that this just didn't happen. Now, if I'm wrong, and if there is at some point going to be audio or video that emerges that proves that this was going on, certainly it shouldn't occur, right? You should not use racial slurs, period. Certainly, you should not use racial slurs at sporting events. Like, this is not complicated. Everyone should know not to do this, okay? If you're out there and you're like, should I do this or not? The answer is no. But similarly, we shouldn't create stories without there being evidence to support it and use it to attack BYU and everyone affiliated with BYU when there's no evidence that it actually occurred at all. I give credit. We got a lot of people now that work at Outkick. Thanks to you guys, we are going to set an all-time record by football season. We're going to be one of the 5 or 10 biggest sports sites on the entire internet. That's how big we are getting. And that's a credit to a lot of our guys and girls doing fantastic work on the site. But I got to tell you, the fact that Outkick is probably going to be the only sports site that will even cover the fact that there's no evidence this ever occurred is an utter indictment of sports media overall, right? I mean, the fact that this is in any way possible is a failure of the sports media to handle the most basic journalistic practices. Now, we covered the allegation. People out there are like, you don't even care. We covered the allegation. So you could have gone and read about it at Outkick. But now we're covering as all of this appears to fall apart. And I just have to say, why is Outkick probably going to be the only site that covers sports that will cover this story not being true? Just ask the question. And the answer is because it upsets many left-wing outlets if this story is not true. They want it to be true. And they are desperately hoping that it's true. And when the evidence starts to collapse around it, they'll just pretend that the story went away. They won't inform their audience of what the actual truth is. And I think that is an utter failure. But, on behalf of the sports media. But, the answer is marketplace responds. Outkick's audience trusts us to be honest with you. We're not perfect. We're going to get some things wrong. It's a live website, live radio, live TVs, live podcast shows. We got a lot of different content going out every day. Not saying we're going to be perfect. We're all human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to be honest with you. And that's why the Outkick audience is exploding and why outside of like ESPN and Bleacher Report, we're going to be one of the 3 or 4 biggest websites in all of sports within football season.